But I want your calls on this just now. Is it okay to go abroad for operations? 0207 862 2222 is the number. Record number of Brits are booking flights and heading to another country to get healthcare. New figures show that more than 500,000 people went overseas last year for treatment. This was to avoid NHS's long waiting lists. And from 2023 to 2024, the NHS waiting list rose from 6.1 million to 7.4 million. Turkey, Poland, Romania, Portugal, India and Italy are the most popular destinations for people seeking surgery abroad, with hip and knee replacements, cataract surgery rather, and dentistry and cosmetic works the most popular procedures. Is it right to go abroad when you can't get treatment at home? That's really what we're asking. Joanna, how do you feel about this?
I can understand people being desperate to get something done, particularly a hip or a knee. I mean, my sister, she had exactly this problem. She was told it's going to be 2 years for a hip replacement. And so I gave her a hip replacement for Christmas. And
what a wonderful family member you are.
Do you know,
what a
lots
gift.
of brownie points.
Yeah.
She was in absolute acute agony, so I do understand it. But there is so much aftercare after a procedure. And I saw that with her, and there was an issue with her procedure, and she did have to go back. I just worry how much of a burden that then becomes on a very overstretched NHS. If you're coming back and suddenly your care has to be moved over to the NHS, I wonder whether that is just not really thinking it through. I personally wouldn't want to go and have an operation done overseas, come back and not know that my surgeon was not around to support me and look after me. I'm not sure I'd even want to get on a plane on the way back, but that's me, and others have a different view. But for the NHS, which is really, really stretched anyhow, I think there's a statistic that 78% of corrective surgeries done in the last year were because of operations done abroad. That is an additional burden we just don't need right now.
That does sound worrying, Bobby.
Yeah, and I can see the stats don't bear well on that. But I was thinking from an individual perspective, if someone in my family had an urgent knee or hip replacement and they were in discomfort and they looked to the NHS, they called up, went to the GP and they said, you're going to have to wait 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. I would, if I could afford, tell them, can you go abroad? Can you get your treatment elsewhere? So I always think it's a case of personal autonomy. If someone thinks that they're in such pain that they need to get treatment as soon as possible, then I actually would encourage them to go abroad, because in most cases it actually decrease NHS waiting lists. And of course, there'll always be risks with procedures, whether it's domestically or abroad. But I think for an individual, they have the right to go and get treatment abroad if they think it can reduce the pain they're in.
Well, it decreases the NHS waiting list until they have to come back and get things corrected. I just want to speak now to Annabel Harris, who actually did travel to a clinic in Lithuania for a hip replacement. Annabel, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, you're in the front line of this. You have been that individual. What was your story then? What was the waiting time you were given? This was for a hip replacement, wasn't it?
Yes, exactly, a hip replacement. I went to Lithuania and had it done. When my pain got very, very bad, I then sort of approached the doctors and was referred for scans and MRIs, but they were going to be quite a long time coming, so I ended up having them done privately. I was then sort of given the guideline of about 2 years possibly to have the hip replacement done. So I was then looking to have it done privately at the local private hospital, but the cost was very high. We were prepared to do that, but then this clinic in Lithuania came to my attention. I did a lot of research in it, spoke to some people that had already been before for that reassurance, because obviously, you know, it's quite a big step to take. But I'm happy to say I'm very glad to say that I did go and do it 2 years ago, and everything went like clockwork, absolutely amazing. My hip is perfect, and I wouldn't hesitate, I haven't hesitated in recommending it to other people.
So can I just go for the nitty gritty and ask you what the cost was?
Yeah.
What were you
Yeah,
going to be
so,
charged here, and what were you
okay.
charged in Lithuania?
Yeah, so the private cost in Norwich Spire Hospital was going to be 20,000. That would just literally for the operation day in the hospital having it done. In Lithuania, the total cost was about 8,500. But that did include nearly 2 weeks accommodation, food, physio, flights, everything all included.
My
eight
goodness.
and a half thousand.
That is a big price difference
Yeah.
there. That is less than half price. I mean, my maths isn't great, but I did that one quickly. What was the
I was
clinic?
going to say, oh, two for one, really. You know, if I need when I need the other one done, I like getting both done for less than the private price.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
what was the clinic like? Because I think a lot of people are worried that the standards won't be as good as
Yeah.
the NHS.
No, absolutely amazing. Lovely staff. Obviously, you know, a top surgeon. He does a lot of people from the UK go to the Corners Clinic. It's called the Nord Clinic. Lovely nurses. Spent a night.
Oh, Annabel, I think you're just dropping out there, but we got the main parts of the story. Thank you very much for joining us, Annabel.
Can I be radical? Make a radical suggestion.
Go on.
For times where, like we've got Annabel's case here, 8.5K, if that's lower than the cost of treating in the NHS and it's like a non-immediate life-threatening situation, I would suggest the NHS pays for patients to go and have their operations abroad.
Oh, that is radical. And to that, we'll go to the phone lines. Chris from Swansea, what do you think about that? Actually, we'll go a step further. The NHS should pay for people to have their procedures done abroad.
Well, I think that would be a good idea. Just give you my case, similar to Annabelle's, especially in Wales. I'm speaking from Swansea. 3 years ago, I was going to have my right hip done. I was told there was a 2.5-year waiting list. I couldn't, so I went privately. And the private hospital here was £14,000.
Okay.
And then I just went ahead, had it done. But this time round, I've done some research into it, and exactly the same as Annabel said, looked up Lithuanian Corners, but not the Nord Hospital. It was another one, a well-being hospital it was called, and they told me what flight to get on, they told me what seat to take, they put me up in a 4-star hotel, I was picked up at the airport, then taken to the clinic. The operation was done. They insisted, as part of the package, you stay for 8 to 9 days for rehabilitation, using the gym, etc. Which in this country they send you out the following day after paying the 14,000. I stayed, flight came back, and the operation absolutely perfect.
And there was no complications or anything, Chris?
None at all.
Can I ask though? You have 8 to 9 days, which if you're kicked out the next day in Britain sounds luxurious, but there isn't any follow-on care after that. Once you come back to Britain, it's not like you can communicate with your surgeon again. Did that not worry you a little bit? Whereas if you were here, you might be at home, but you could still be on the phone saying, this doesn't feel right, or, you know, I now have a fever, or whatever it is.
Yeah, no, that didn't worry me. In fact, their backup is that they ring me from time to time to make sure I'm okay. Which doesn't happen in this country. The other thing is, you know, if a complication occurs, I can't imagine, although I have not checked this, that the NHS would turn you down if there was something wrong with the hip.
No, that is a debate that we've had many a time on this show, but no, they will not turn you away. Obviously, if your life is at risk or you are in serious condition, they will look after you. Chris, thank you very much for your call and sharing your experiences with that. Annie from Kent, have you ever went abroad for an operation?
Hello, no. Why I rang in was I'm a retired operating theatre nurse, and I feel that when you see people that it's all very well people going abroad, I would never say don't do it, because there's good and bad everywhere. But when patients come back and there's a problem, you get patients with sepsis, necrotizing fasciitis, you know, when all the wound goes black and it goes right inside them. And then you've got the other organs that are affected and may have to go into ITU, lots and lots of surgery, lots of drugs, antibiotics. And then when they get home, in between times of having the surgery, they have to have the district nurses come out to clean their wounds, sometimes 3-4
Annie,
times a day.
We can see then how quickly this mounts up for the NHS and actually puts more pressure on the NHS. But you can't you see the appeal to going abroad, especially when you hear stories like Annabel and Chris's?
That's right, that gentleman that was just speaking. Yeah, like I say, you've got good and bad everywhere.
So what's the answer?
I don't know.
No.
I think that the way we are at the moment, I think that personally, I see that over the years, I was a nurse for over 45 years, and I see now that it went more and more to having more management and non-clinical staff, and getting rid of clinical staff.
Okay.
And,
Annie,
and also
we're now starting
that's
to get into the
problem.
nitty-gritty of how to reorganise the NHS, which is not a conversation I don't enjoy, but we will have it another day. Today is the day for whether it's appropriate to get an operation done overseas. But thank you very much for your insight on that one. Mandy from Jersey, what's your view on this?
Oh, hello, Storm. How are you?
I'm grand, thank you. And yourself?
Yeah, not too bad, my love. I'm phoning from Jersey. And unfortunately, I went through cancer, and I went to the Royal Marsden. Now, they were absolutely brilliant. It was the aftercare when I come back to Jersey. So that's why I would say I would go private if I had the money. We're not all rich over here, and the aftercare was really bad.
Right. So, I mean, it's slightly different to go private. You would go private in Jersey, you would go private back in, because it was London, the Royal Marsden's based in London.
No, I would go private in Jersey if I had the money.
Right, okay, because the care that you got wasn't good enough. Would you ever consider going abroad?
Definitely, yeah.
Even though
Yeah,
there could be
I would.
complications, we don't know the status of the hospital that you might be going to. There's no research into that. There could be language barriers. None of that would worry you?
But I think there's language barriers everywhere, my love, not being rude. Over here in the UK, I think the nurses and doctors are trying to... I think that's what upsets me, you know. These doctors and nurses may be coming from different countries, and the language barrier is not their fault. They're trying to do a job.
Oh, right, okay, and that's
fault.
the problem that you faced in Jersey, was it?
It was more over here, yeah.
Okay, all right, interesting, Mandy. It's not a problem I've had. I thought you meant just talking to me. There was a language barrier.
No.
Which you won't be the first person to have told me that. Mandy, thank you very much for your call. Thanks for all your calls on that.